Peterbot is seemingly on a collision course to go up against the second coming of himself, Shxrk. We've heard comparisons between the two for a while, and Shxrk has proved time and time again why he is one of, if not the best fighter in the world, and him and his duo Teeny showed why again this last weekend in the Reload qualifier finals. So far, Shxrk and Teeny have won 3 of the 4 Reload Elite qualifiers in Europe, while Peterbot and Poyo have won 3 of the 4 in North America. Pete and Poyo even took the most recent qualifier in just 7 games after Peterbot literally slept through game 1. With both duos heading to LAN, we're about to find out who the true kings of Reload really are. So I broke down both teams' winning performances from the EWC qualifiers to see exactly how they did it, including Peterbot and Poyo's hilarious 19 kill win that I promise you guys need to stick around to see. Let's start out first with one of Shxrk and Teeny's wins. Shxrk and Teeny landed elite experiments, and Teeny gets contested off spawn, but manages to take down Shxrk to start the match. Shxrk lands on the outskirts though, and after he runs back to potentially help Teeny in their off spawn, he goes and pushes a third party, but goes down. This was part of their plan though. Because Teeny was safe in elite experiments, Shxrk knew that he could go for some early kill points and respawn back on Teeny and loot up again. With these really aggressive teams and good fighters, you will see a lot of this where one stays back at their POI, and the other goes to try and pick up some free kill points on a third party at the start of the game. Shxrk and Teeny get a really good zone pull in this game, and they do this interesting base strategy I haven't seen before with walls on one side and stairs on the other, and while you can't tell from replay mode, they have full view in front of them through these stairs. The 5th zone doesn't pull for them, but instead of going into zone now, they calmly wait, pop their medkits, and buy more from the vending machine. You might have noticed that Teeny is also carrying 2 super launch pads, which a lot of the good reload teams are doing, but they also have an extra one that they place down in the storm, allowing them to hit this pad and fly really high until they dive down and make it in on the dead side, right before the 5 tick from the 7th zone kicks in, which they end up pulling. After getting in with an overdrive rotate for the 7th zone, the 8th zone is where we see these launch pads come in handy. Teeny uses the fizz and Shxrk uses the overdrive grenade in the box, both of which send you higher when you use the launch pad, and combining them sends you hundreds of feet into the air, where Shxrk and Teeny are able to glide all the way through 8th zone and halfway into 9th zone, that whole time not having to use any materials or healing while everyone else in the lobby does. Not only that, when they land, Shxrk is able to take down Vidil for some kill points. Shxrk does get hit really hard though, but since they've been safe the whole game, he can quickly eat his pizza since they still have all their heals. Shxrk and Teeny don't panic, they stick to their game plan. They overdrive fizzpad again as the 9th zone is about to end, where they're able to skip the entire 10th zone and dive down when there are only 10 total players left, and they still have 1,000 materials each with great heals. They spent 2 whole minutes floating above the lobby this game during moving zones, not having to build, putting them in a position to easily win the game. They make it in together, and you might have noticed that Teeny has also managed to smuggle an RPG to the end game, not even carrying a spray weapon. Janice and Rax are on height currently, but Shxrk goes into zone with his last overdrive and pressures them enough to force them off high ground, allowing Teeny to come up to height. Teeny can now use his RPG to pressure all of the players below them, and one of these rockets gets him a kill onto Pixie, and Shxrk goes down to Storm, making this a super easy win for Shxrk and Teeny as they played their game plan perfectly. Moving to Peterbot and Poyo's first win. Poyo lands at top tier training as they have it uncontested, but Peterbot drops into the heavily contested elite armory to try and get some early game kills. He does go off spawn, but no matter though. Peter lands back on Poyo and they can loot up as normal from here. Pete and Poyo don't play their early game as passively as Shxrk and Teeny this game though. They get a couple early game kills, but notice that Poyo is also carrying the launch pads in his inventory, the same as Shxrk and Teeny. They take another engagement onto Curve and Higgs as Pete hits Curve really hard with the Mammoth pistol. Notice how they land on either side of this duo to create a pinch. Pete and Poyo are the 2 players who are best at creating pinches. They instinctively attack from opposite angles when pressuring opponents, and spray them to keep them on their toes, and it allows Poyo to get in after they overload Curve in this fight. They farm Curve again, and Pete goes down probably when he shouldn't, but Poyo is able to take down Curve and revive Pete. Pete finds Curve again, and he just stalls out the fight until Poyo can get over to him, taking safe angles like this nice floor edit pickaxe and peppering Curve until they can 2v1 him again. There was an extra launch pad in this loot here, so they fizz pad ahead of the 6th zone, where they can land on dead side and play in storm while using gold to buy more heals. For the 7th zone, same as Shxrk and Teeny, they use an overdrive to rotate and wrap on the edge of zone, and then for the 8th zone, they fizz overdrive pad to skip all the way to the 9th zone, where they do the same thing again. After all of this gliding, they're able to dive down in the 10th zone, where they pick up a nice high layer with 1,500 mats between them, in a great position. They already know that height isn't super established since they were gliding above for so long, so with the amount of mats they have, it's pretty much free height for them when they shock up. On height, they're able to spray down, and Pete finds a mammoth shot on the bolts, who is gliding to take him down. This would normally be a pretty routine height win, but they get rocketed out since the RPG is in reload right now. But luckily, they've been consistently tapping the flow-barrier fizz, so they always have the low gravity effect for this exact reason to cancel fall damage. They're able to retain high ground after this, and Poyo's able to find knocks on Equeezy and visuals with the Gatekeeper shotgun, which pros are using over the Sentinel shotgun in these stacked endgames. But Peter gets dropped onto low ground and taken out, leaving Poyo as a solo. Poyo stays on height for the 1v2 and tries to block Noisy and Neo in zone. He gets hit hard though and overdrives up, barely escaping, but Neo goes down to Storm, leaving it as a 1v1, where Poyo's able to get the siphon he needs to outlast Noisy, and he goes down to Storm too. A super clutch win. Let's go into game 2 of Shxrk and Teeny, where we actually see Shxrk land on Pradaj for a quick kill, similar to how Peterbot did, but he also goes down here and respawns back with Teeny. Shxrk and Teeny end up looting up their POI and sit in Storm deep into the game, and Teeny's able to take down Izzy when they double him and revive Shxrk. They keep playing Storm, and Teeny takes down Izzy again, who had just respawned back in, and they set up on the vending machine with their launch pad. The master of lurking himself gets lurked on though, as Teeny goes down here, losing their launch pad and throwing a wrench in their normal game plan of using a launch pad in the endgame. Shxrk and Teeny know they need to move fast, and luckily there was already a pad thrown down from earlier where they fizz pad into zone, beating the 5 tick by mere seconds. Unfortunately though, they get a max pull, so they try and overdrive along the edge of the circle in this situation, setting themselves up for a better position to do the full rotate from. From here, they're able to fizz overdrive onto the edge of zone, where they're much less of a target for the lobby as opposed to flying through the middle. On this rotate though, Shxrk laser focuses onto a fight, where he takes down Nosif, giving them an enormous refresh, and Teeny's now stacked. They still don't have the launch pads that make reload endgame so much easier, but we see what makes this team so good in the fighting based mode like reload. For the 8th zone, they fizz overdrive to the front of zone, and somehow Teeny has his hands back on a rocket launcher, allowing him and Shxrk to pressure opponents around them. They overdrive to zone again, and Teeny tarps into Storm to get ahead. Shxrk notices that he has Thomas HD's wall in the situation, and they're able to open up and take him down for a refresh. Shxrk and Teeny overdrive in their box, and Teeny makes a nice tarp here to get to front side, and both of them have 1,000 materials again. They know it's time to go for height. With Teeny's RPG, they're able to grief Darm and Demish off height, and take it pretty easily with the amount of mats they have. Darm and Demish go back up though for height, and Teeny gets hit hard. Instead of panicking though, they just box up a little below them, knowing that since they had so many mats, they could afford to bide some time up on the high ground. They keep using their mats to mirror height, knowing that really only Darm and Demish could do anything about them while they were up there. Eventually though, Teeny realizes that a floor they were standing on was his, and Shxrk is able to finish off Darm. There's a new challenge for height though, but Teeny still has the RPG, and Shxrk drops an overdrive to Teeny and taps fizz, where they fizz overdrive onto height again, and with the RPG shot and Shxrk spraying, there really isn't much that Glubshy and Robin can do here, and they go down pretty easily. From all these late game kills, they still have a ton of mats, where they can continuously tap the fizz to have the low gravity effect, and Teeny spams RPG shots down below. Shxrk drops down to look for kills, and keeps looking for different angles, and manages to take down Pixie and Swizzy in an instant by dropping on their back wall and Storm. From here it's a 2v1, and Teeny is able to finish off Skyjump for an 11 kill win for the duo, helping secure their 3rd EWC qualifier win. Now what you've all been waiting for, the Peterbot and Poyo 19 kill win. To start out this game, they both land at top tier training instead of Pete landing elsewhere and fighting off spawn. Both Pete and Poyo loot up this time and go and fight together, and Pete is able to sneak up on a Northern who he does a ton of damage to. Pete knows that he can use a lot of movement to secure the kill since they have so much extra loot in their POI. And simultaneously, while Pete is chasing down Northern and securing that kill, Poyo is able to take down Caliper. This is where the high kill game really starts though. Pete is able to find Northern and Salt fighting, where he takes down Northern and then finds him respawning again. Then Poyo sees Northern and goes for him another time and Storm for another kill. And guess what? Peter's able to take down Northern again. Oh, you thought they were done? Nope. Poyo takes him down again. And no, Pete takes him down another time. This next time though, Northern headshots Pete with the Mammoth while he was hiding, bringing him down to 25 HP. But Poyo just takes him down anyways. Now it's the 5th zone, so it's time to get ready to move. And they take down Northern again. They've now killed Northern 9 times during this game, absolutely farming him. This time though, they actually do rotate to zone, where they fizz pad and take dead side as the 6th zone starts to open up. It seems their karma comes back to get them though, as the 7th zone is a max pull for them. But they make a really clever play. Pete and Poyo notice that they're close to a naturally spawning launch pad, so they tap fizz, run into zone since it was a 5 tick and not a 10 tick, hit the pad and get to skip the 7th zone rotate. They make it in, and Poyo notices Caliper is getting pressured, where he can take doubles and take him down. They drop on a loot and grab it and go back up. And who else is getting sprayed by the whole lobby besides Northern, who Pete and Poyo double spray, but in a divine moment of justice, they don't get the kill points for. Regardless though, Pete and Poyo don't have any launch pads now, but have lots of overdrive, so they both solo shock to get in and meet up on a high layer on the front of zone. They solo Shxrk again, and Peter takes a really high mid-ground layer in the 9th zone, where they try and pressure anyone off of their layer in the situation to set up for their eventual height play. They notice that a launch pad had been placed near them though, and try to fizz overdrive before hitting the pad, but Pollo gets launched into zone. Pollo doesn't panic though. He tries to hit the pad, but realizes he can't quickly since he has the fizz effect, and he notices that height is totally free, and there's only 15 seconds until the 10th zone when they would usually start playing height anyways. Pete dives onto Pollo's height tarp, and they start spraying down and continuously tapping fizz. They notice another pad, and since they aren't really high enough to play high ground from where they are, and there are still quite a few players left, if they're able to hit this launch pad, they can save so many mats. They get the fizz overdrive off this time, and Pete hits the pad, but when Pollo drops, someone cones it, blocking him again from hitting the launch pad. They make the same call here, go back up to height since it's relatively free in this moment, and Pollo is able to beam visuals out of the air. Slowly but surely, they make their height tarp higher and higher to prevent anyone from fizz overdriving on top of them, and Pete drops down to look for some kills. He takes out Chimp pretty easily, and Pollo drops down as well. They start pressuring A-corner bolts who are now really weak, and they overdrive up, but Pollo counters this by overdriving himself, where he hits a crazy shot onto Acorn and manages to take down bolts on his way down. Pete and Pollo are still on height but don't have many mats now, so they tap fizz and drop down, and Pete finds another kill onto Sails but goes back up to heal. Pollo then takes a turn dropping, where he patiently waits for his angle on Vert to take him down, putting them at 17 total kills in a 2v2 situation. Even though they've been playing so aggressively the whole game, they don't get overconfident, and play the last 2v2 against Curve and Higgs very carefully. They bide their time until Pete waits for the perfect moment to drop onto Higgs and Storm, surprising him and maxing him to take him down. They did give up high ground here, but both Pete and Pollo just spray Curve on height, who's already weak, and they're able to take him down for their 19 kill win in finals, with 9 of them being onto Northern. The EWC line is going to be so hype with these two teams, and I would be shocked if anyone else took the win. If you like these kinds of videos about LAN tournaments, check out the video on Vico and Malabuca's performance at the Summit LAN from earlier this year.